Lena climbed the creaking steps, each step kicking up dust motes in the single shaft of sunlight. The attic smelled stale, forgotten. She wrinkled her nose, then coughed. A blanket of dust covered everything. She saw it then, tucked in the corner. An ornately framed mirror, its surface cloudy and dark. Curiosity piqued. Lena walked towards it, her hand trailing through the thick air. The attic was silent except for the rustle of her clothes and the thudding of her heart. As she neared the mirror, a cold shiver ran down her spine. The air grew heavy, harder to breathe. She hesitated. She shouldn't touch it, a voice whispered in her head, but something about the mirror drew her in. Its ornate frame, tarnished with age, hinted at a forgotten beauty. Tentatively, Lena reached out a hand and wiped away the dust. The mirror's glass was surprisingly clear beneath the grime. It reflected her back, her image slightly distorted by the age of the glass. Lena stared at her reflection, a sense of unease settling in her stomach. Her reflection seemed, off. The reflection in the mirror moved just a fraction of a second, slower than Lena. She froze, her breath catching in her throat. A nervous laugh escaped her lips. "It's just the light," she whispered, but her voice shook. She took a step back. The reflection mimicked her movement, every twitch, every blink slightly delayed. But it was more than that. Her reflection held a subtle sneer, a menacing glint in its eyes that Lena knew wasn't on her own face. Fear pricked at the edges of her mind. Lena's hand trembled as she reached out to touch the mirror's surface. Her heart hammered against her ribs. The glass was cold, almost painfully so. The chill seemed to spread, seeping from the mirror into her bones. In the mirror, the reflection moved independently. It grinned, a wide, unnerving expression that didn't reach its eyes. The eyes, cold and flat, stared at Lena with a hunger that sent chills down her spine. Terror, sharp and cold, flooded her. She had to get out of here. Lena stumbled back, turning to flee, but the reflection was faster. It lunged forward, its hand breaking through the surface of the mirror, reaching for her. Claws, long and sharp, glinted in the dim light of the attic. Lena screamed. The hand shot forward, grabbing her wrist in a vice-like grip. Lena screamed again, struggling against the impossible strength that held her. She pulled back, but the grip only tightened, the claws digging into her flesh. Panic surged through her veins. She thrashed and kicked, but it was no use. The reflection pulled her closer, its cold, dead eyes boring into hers. Her own reflection smiled, a triumphant, chillingly familiar smile. With a sickening lurch, Lena was pulled through the mirror's surface. She landed on the other side, a cold, dusty world that mirrored her own. Trapped. Her own reflection, now free, grinned at her from the other side. It turned, walking out of the mirror and into the real world, and Lena was left alone, a prisoner in her own reflection.